Welcome everyone to another episode of API development series. I'm Yuvraj Shrestha, and here in this episode we are going to talk about API development, APIs. So in our previous episode we talked about routings and controllers where we created few routes. So this is the documentation for all the API setup that you should follow in YAML. Let's go step by step. Let's start by adding these fields in models first. So I'm here inside app models, user model, and import that name and pass it here. Authenticates tokens. Alright, so now we do have that one. So let's create migration file, python craft migration add, what was the name, API token, fill in users table. Let's pass in table name users. Okay, perfect. So inside database migrations we have new migration file where we should add this line and also write the reversal case here. So I'm gonna copy all those things, and instead of a string I'm gonna write drop column and remove this one. Perfect. Let's run the migration, python craft migrate. So that's done. Now the next step is to create this api.py file. So this command will create that file. I'm just gonna copy and paste it here inside configuration directory. So here I'm here inside config, so we do not have that api.py file. Let's create one. Okay, it's done. Our next step is to add these things in web routes. So I'm gonna copy all those things, and inside web let's do add API routes and import that name from masonite.api. This part is also done. Let's remove that. You should now create an api.py file to your routes. Okay, let's create api.py file inside routes, api.py, and let's copy this one here. Also we have to import this route, so to do that just copy this line and paste it here. So now we do have access to that. So it's calling users, and that one is calling users controller at index. Okay, let's create one controller, python craft controller users controller. So now we do have this users controller here, users controller index. So let's define that, def index self return self dot response, not self dot response. We're gonna have to import response here, and response return response dot json. Let's import that name from masonite dot response, import response. Perfect. So now we do have this users controller, and we do have that index method. So route get users controller index. Perfect. And what is the next step? So we followed all. Okay, registering this provider. Copy the name, and let's go to our config providers. Okay, import the name here. Looks like there's a typo. Perfect. And register the API provider. It's done. Now we did this, and this part is also done, this part is also done, this part is done, and also now we have to register routes API inside kernel file, inside register routes. Okay, so let's go to kernel file and inside register route here, let's paste that. That's it. And inside kernel file again, we're gonna have to import this JWT authentication middleware and create API inside route middleware. So let's go to route middleware, and we don't have that, so let's just copy and paste. Looks like that's it. So let's open up Postman. So we do have these routes created previously in our other episodes. So I'm just gonna create a new request here, and I'm gonna call it a users, a list users, and here let's run our application, which is Python craft serve, and it's running. So it's running in for 8000 port. So http localhost 8000, we do have this users route inside API. So basically we need this API here, and let's do send, and authentication token is missing. Okay, perfect. That's all right. So now so we do have authentication URLs. So this is the URL. So if you want to get the token, then you have to post request on this. So I'm gonna do the same. So here let's duplicate this one and call it login, and the API is API auth, and this one will be post, and that is going to take 2 parameters. Username and password. Okay, username and password. Perfect. Before that, let's go to our seed and feed in default user and password. So inside seeds, we do have this user table, and instead of running this factory, and also instead of running all these categories, I'm gonna comment that part here, and from user table seeder I'm going to create this one, and from masonite.facades.hash import hash. So I'm gonna use hash to hash the password. Hash.make, our password will be caps lock, and decode ETF string, and let's call it John Doe, and the email. Okay, perfect. So let's stop the server and Python craft migrate refresh, and Python craft seed run. So this should create one user. So let's copy this john@doe.com and paste it here, and copy the caps lock, password, paste it here. Perfect. Python craft serve, and let's hit it. Okay, now we do have this authentication token. Now I'm gonna copy that, and here I'm gonna paste it. Okay, let's do send. Now you can see we do have this foo bar. Now we are successfully authenticated to the API. Perfect. So I'm gonna close this one as well, also user table and user py. So now I'm gonna move all these routes that I created in our previous episode to APIs. So we'll have a proper authentication module set up, and also the routes. So I'm here inside API and I'm gonna paste it here. Also I'm gonna copy these items and paste it here, and I'm gonna copy this one as well, and instead of blocks this one is users routes. So let's call these users, and instead of blocks controller this one will be users controller. Perfect. And blocks controller, let's copy everything from inside blocks controller and paste it inside users, and let's replace few things. So this one will be users controller. Perfect. And instead of block we are going to use a user, and instead of blocks let's use users, and here we do have blocks, so let's replace that as well, user. Perfect. So in order to create user we do need name, email, password and phone. So name, email, password, and let's remove everything else and copy the same thing here in update 2. So this password must be hashed, so data password equals to hash dot make and decode. Perfect. So this will create user, and let's create, take name and email only and check if request dot input password. So now if we have password then only data password equals to hash make password decode, and here we are going to update the user. So I'm gonna place this item here. Perfect. And user not found, user deleted. Okay, so our API for users has been completed, and I'm gonna close this one. Okay, everything looks perfect, and let's go to blocks and call it get all blocks and see what happens. So it says route not found because we have to pass in API here, API block send. We are not seeing authentication token here. Let's close this. Let's copy this one, and then inside get all blocks, inside here authorization, let's select barrier token and pass in the value here, and let's call it send. And you can see we do have empty list, but API is working. So you have to do the same thing every time. So instead of actually copying and pasting the data from here, let's write a test code. Let's call it const response equals to pm, which means postman dot response dot json, and our value is inside data. So pm dot environment dot set token variable to responses data. Perfect. Let's run this code again. Looks like it is working. Now what we can use here is a token. So we do have token value. Let's create one environment, add, so let's call it Masonite blog, and save and select the environment here. Let's run this once again, and let's go to blocks. Now you can see we do have this token variable here, I mean value here. So if you hit send, then you can see this is working. So let's do the same for all other APIs. So this one will be API blocks too, and inside authorization we're gonna need bearer token with token. Same goes for blog. So API blocks, and inside authorization we need to select barrier token. Inside update blocks, let's call it API, and barrier token, perfect. And inside delete, API delete, authorization will be barrier token, perfect. Also let's do the same for categories, API categories, and authorization will be barrier token, and create new category, API categories, authorization barrier token. All right, so looks like we did those setups for all of our routes. So let's try to get all the categories that we have seen. So now we don't have any data inside category. Let's create one. So inside body we do have these fields, click send, and the category has been created. And let's go to the index one, and we do have all these categories, perfect. So our API is working, and same goes for blocks, send, and we don't have anything there. So let's create one blog, send, perfect. Let's get blocks, perfect. Well, our blocks API is also working. Let's duplicate one API. So I'm gonna duplicate categories API and rename this one to users API, and let's close all other APIs. And here, instead of get all categories, this will be get all users and users. So let's run this. Now you can see we have this one user, currently logged in user. Create new users. Also here in name, so we need a specific value for users here. So name will be Jane Doe, and we need email. So email will be zane@doe.com, and we need password also. So password, let's call it caps lock, perfect. And let's copy the same thing here in update 2. So inside body I'm gonna paste everything there, and this one is users, and this one is user. All right, so let's do this for delete as well. User, users, perfect. So now if you try to get all users, then it's working. Let's go back to our users controller and see what we have here. So everything that we need for update and create has been created. So let's just try to create new user, send. So now you can see new user has been created. So if we try to get the list of users, then there must be 2 users. Okay, so John Doe and Jane Doe, perfect. So our APIs are working perfectly fine, and we do have this authentication routes. We do have set up like proper setup of API here. So JWTMiddleware is in play. So if you are logged out, then you will be no longer able to access to these APIs. So yeah, that's it in APIs. So If you want to learn more about APIs, then you can go check this documentation and see what other things you can actually find here. So for this tutorial, this is it, and in our next tutorial we'll talk more about models and relations. So stay tuned and hope to see you in next episode. Bye.